Good morning, students. Our chapter crop production and management that gets completed. Now we coming to the chapter first, known as force. What is force? In general terms, we name it as the जैसे बल हिंदी में इसका नाम होता है बल, but in common words you can give the common name like धक्का. That is also a force. So what is force? It is a push or pull on an object that causes it to change in its state of rest or motion. Suppose you are traveling in a bus. Some person besides you has given you a force. You are standing at rest and you are having some motion. Then it shows some of the force has been applied. This is a push. What is pull? Pull is the pulling. When you are pulling a notebook from the bench, when you are pulling the mobile from the table, then it is the pull. In both cases, force exerts. Force is position when you are changing the state of rest or the state of motion. It has magnitude as well as direction. We can say that in which direction the force is working. Hence, force is a vector quantity. The SI unit of force is Newton. What are the effects of force? It can change the shape and size of object. It can change the shape and size of object. Suppose a plastic bottle, that is a Bisleri bottle. If you apply force, what happens? Its shape gets distorted, its size gets decreased. Okay, so this is the example of force. You are having a rubber band. When you stretch it, its shape and size will be changing. Then it is also the example of force. Force can slow down or stops a moving object, or it can make the rest object into motion or increases the speed of object. That means it can increase or decrease the speed of any object, whether in motion or in rest. It can change the direction of a moving object. Suppose my face is on your side. Some person comes and changes my chair to any more direction. Okay, so in that case also force is also applied. What is the magnitude of force? It is the strength of net forces acting on an object. Suppose when two or more forces are acting on an object, then what is the net resultant force? That are based on the two types. One is known as the balanced force and other is known as the unbalanced force. First we are taking example of balanced force. If two similar forces exert on a body in opposite direction, then the net movement is zero. Suppose two students are applying force on me, one from right side, other from left side, and I am still at my own position. My position is not changing. Then it is known as the balanced force. Example, book present on the table. Book is left on the table. Then there is no movement. Hence, now the force applied is known as the balanced force. What kind of forces are there? I am you giving example showing this image. Very first important, you can a plastic truck. One force comes from this side and other comes force from its opposite side, then there is no change in the position of truck. This is known as the balanced force. Again, next, this is the very important example. When you are sitting on the chair or table or on any bench, your weight applies downward. At the same time, chair is also pushing you a force which is equal to the force applied by you. Hence, there is no change in your position. Hence, there is no change in your position. Side is known as the balanced force. Next is what are the unbalanced forces? If two different forces exert on a body in any direction, if the net movement of body takes place, is known as unbalanced forces. For example, moisture of a human body on a rod, movement of a cricket ball, movement of our satellites, etc. So from this images you can give example of unbalanced forces. This is the rope pulling by two students. One is showing less force of 30 Newton, other is showing more force of 15 Newton. So what is your opinion? The rope, the person will go to the higher force side. That means this is the example of unbalanced forces, when one body exerts more force and lifts the other person and pulls the other person, is known as unbalanced force. And one more example, a car having 3 Newton force on left side and 8 Newton on right side, then where it goes? Then it goes on the right side. Again, the movement of a satellite, it goes upwards. Okay, so this is the examples of unbalanced forces. Next we coming how we can measure the force. Force is the measurement by force meters, generally known as the spring balance. Okay, the spring balance may be used on the principle of expansion and compression. This is the method to measure the force. Take a top pen balance, you put your hand, apply force, its value gets increases, then it is the measurement of force. Okay, so this is the measurement of force and also measures the weight, which we discuss in my next videos. Next is what are the type of forces? There are more two type of forces named as contact force and non-contact force. So what is contact force? Contact means physical contact, physical touch. These are the forces which acts only when the objects are in physical touch with each other and bring about changes, are known as the contact forces. Example, kicking of football, kicking of cricket ball, giving a kick to the other person, etc. Those are the example of contact forces. Contact forces are further of two types. One is known as the muscular force, other is known as the frictional force. What is muscular force? Muscular force is the force resulting due to the action of muscles which applies using our body, our muscles. Okay, force applied by our hands, legs, fingers, force applied by human beings, animals, all are included in the muscular force. And what is the frictional force? It is the force acting along the two surfaces in contact, which possesses the motion of one body over the other, is known as frictional motion or frictional force. It is always opposite to motion and decreases the speed of that moving object. It is due to the roughness of the surface. More is the roughness, more is the friction. So in this picture you can see about the elephant carrying load. So this is the muscular force. Human being which moves is stick to move elephant, that is also frictional force. Oxen of the plowing by the farmer, that is also the frictional force. But what is the that they are the muscular forces. But what is the frictional force? The frictional force is by a moving of ball which stops after some time. This is due to the frictional force. Here you see that ball is moving. After some time the speed of ball decreases, more decreases, and ultimately it comes to rest. This is known as the frictional force. Again, two type of contact forces. One is the frictional force and other is muscular force. Muscular force used by our muscles, by our body, and frictional force by the surface. Okay, so this is about the today. Thanks and have